Doug, you got to be going out of your mind that this story is finally being told.
Oh my gosh. You know, I mean, when I realized how intertwined my ancestors were into all of this,
right.
I thought this is something that has to be told. And you know, I'm 7th generation in Iowa City. My great-great-great-grandparents came here in 1861, and we were talking last night. We haven't moved. My family hasn't moved within like 8 blocks in 7 generations.
The entire time?
Yeah, yeah.
What is it about Iowa City that makes you want to stay?
It's big enough where there's always something happening, but it's small enough where we're connected. You know, in the process of making this film, you know, it's the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but in Iowa City, it's the 2 degrees of Doug. And realizing how intertwined everybody is, and it's home. And the fact that, you know, I've grown up here in the store for my entire life. I remember working here when I was 6. My son started when he was about 9 months old, starting in his first commercial and all that. And so this is home.
So it's gratifying from the sense that you're someone who has lived in Iowa City and loves this city, has it in your bones, Iowa City, but it's also got to be gratifying as somebody who is obviously very passionate about beer, and to be able to tell this great story that, I mean, you kind of were telling us about this when we visited you years and years ago on the show about, you know, the brewery and the fighting and the wars that went on, and as you told that story, I thought, holy cow, that's if true, it's huge, and it turns out it is true.
It is, and it's riveting enough that, you know, the book that Steve wrote and the screenplay that McCutsky wrote is just, it's dying to get onto the big screen and to be able to tell that story to everyone. And not just in Iowa, but all across the country.
And that's what's going to be so great when this movie is in theaters and then on, you know, streaming platforms and everything. Everyone's going to hear this story. I guess, are you preparing yourself for a year or so from now? You know, I mean, look what Field of Dreams did for Dyersville.
Yes.
Are you kind of preparing already? And I something about you tells me that you're kind of already thinking about 2022 or 2025, the beer tourists that are going to come and want to see the caves and where the fights happen and all of that.
Yes, yeah, no, it really is something that we have been able to focus that energy and make it so that we can bring so many people, not just to our neighborhood, but our state. And when I think of the impact that Field of Dreams has had for the baseball lover, and I'm a baseball lover, but, you know, which is bigger, beer or baseball? I'm going to say probably beer. And, you know, we've been kind of joking, brew it, and they will come.
You know, you mentioned your 7th generation. Yeah. I wonder if the one thing that could have chased your family out of here is if the temperance movement would have gotten their way.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah. Well, so my grandpa actually, his family owned a, it wasn't a speakeasy, but it was a club where they did setups. And so you could go
I don't know,
with
Doug, this sounds an awful lot like a speakeasy.
Yeah, you know.
But statute of limitations is over, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, no. But you'd bring your own bottle in, and they would give you a spot, and they would give you a Coke or a 7-Up to be able to have your own stuff, but they weren't actually the one providing the alcohol.
Well, why wouldn't they just drink it at home then? They wanted to be social?
They wanted to be social, yeah,
okay.
Because that's what it's all about.
So it was like a BYOB club?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
Green Gables Inn. It was out on Dubuque Street, out across from the KXIC big antennas.
Right on. So you could just bring your own stuff.
Yep.
And if you wanted something to chase it with or something to kind of hydrate with, that was their job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
How do the caves tie into the story?
So the caves that we have that we're going to go into in a little bit, they are the original fermentation cellars and lagering cellars of the Union Brewing Company. Marlon Ingalls, the state archaeologist, came in one day and said, "Doug, you want to go down in the caves?" I said, yeah. And so I've been going down there for the better part of a decade, and Marlon and I have been leading tours, and we've done probably about maybe 36 charity tours over the years. Less than 350 people have gone down into the caves in the past decade, but by going down, and we call it the ladder of death for kind of a reason, but
the ladder of death.
Yeah. Well, you know.
You say it so casually.
But,
having not been on the ladder of death, I have my reservations.
No.
You're just throwing around ladder of death like that's something people say casually. Continue, Doug.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, but to be able to see, touch, feel the history and what it took to dig down without pneumatics, without hydraulics,
Right.
all by hand,
Right.
35 feet down, and to be able to bring in millions of bricks to be able to create a building that would be one of 3 large production breweries right in our block is out of this world. And to know that it took so many hands, and my forefathers were part of that.
Right. And the reason that they're underground is for fermentation purposes.
Well, it's because it's colder down there.
You have you can't really control the climate back then unless you're underground.
Exactly.
And then you have a consistent temperature.
Yeah, so it's 55 degrees year-round.
All the time.
And so a little bit of ice goes a long way. And so they would harvest this ice from the Iowa River, because back in the day it actually completely froze.
Sure.
They'd cut out the huge 5x5x5 blocks, pack it in sawdust, and then in the ice caves, and then bring it out as needed into the beer caves. Because that lagering, it has to be about 33 degrees for that beer to really hit its peak.
Right. And it's got to be that for a long time.
Yeah, about 6 to 8 weeks.
Doing this show and telling the story of the people that make the craft beer that we enjoy so well, and that is certainly available here at John's Grocery in Iowa City, I'm always just blown away by how hard everybody works to make a product that we have so much fun with.
Yes, yeah.
But when you consider how much harder it used to be,
Yes.
what does that say about beer, that people are willing to break their backs now to make it? And then back then, I mean, when you think of hauling ice out of the river, packing in sawdust, digging a cave, putting it in the cave,
Well, because beer was life.
Right.
And in doing a little bit of research, about 1/7 of the town's population of Iowa City was involved in one way, shape, or form with brewing. So you had so many people that were putting forth an effort to make all that happen.
Right.
And that just is kind of mind-boggling.
It's just, you take it for granted, you enjoy it and you're having fun, but every glass you consume, a lot of hard work goes into that.
Yes.
And always has.
It has, yeah. There's no shortcuts, and especially back then.
All right, I feel like I've said my piece before we descend down the ladder of death. Let's do that next here on Brewed. All right, 2 points of contact.